Hey y'all, welcome back to the Focus on Focusing podcast with your host, Cynthia Perez.
And Tanya Covarrubias.
So today we're missing a co-host, but don't worry, she'll be back hopefully by the next episode. So today it's just me and Tanya, and we'll be talking about or today's theme is about silently struggling. So kind of like the hidden side of ADHD. Um, so the reason we wanted to have a whole episode dedicated to this topic was because many people with ADHD may appear. We've mentioned this before in a lot of our episodes previous or a lot of our previous episodes where a lot of people can appear like high functioning. So those people that you may see doing really well in school or you wouldn't suspect that they have ADHD. Um, but those people actually may be feeling what you're feeling. They could also be exhausted, guilty, and even a lot of times misunderstood.
Okay, so now we're gonna go into the icebreaker that we have for today's podcast. And the question is, what's something that you secretly struggle with that people would never guess? Um, I'll go first. I think something that I really struggle with silently is social anxiety, because I can say I am a pretty social person on the outside, but every time I have a conversation with someone or just someone new, I get really anxious and I don't really make it known that I am, but inside I'm secretly dying inside.
hmm
But what about you?
I would honestly probably say the same, except I feel like I make it obvious sometimes when I'm like really nervous. I'll start like fidgeting a lot and like I'll stumble over my words or like my voice will get really, really shaky. But then I've had people tell me that like they, I think it just depends where, like, what situation I'm in, like what environment I'm in. Because if I'm like with
Mhm.
someone who's like more shy, I'll usually be the one to step up and
Yeah.
like speak, I guess. But if I'm with like people that are more outgoing with me, I'll kind of like go into my shell a little and let them be like not the center of attention, but just kind of like more like speak more, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But I feel like that low key comes from like how I grew up, where like
Mhm.
my aunt, like she's kind of like my sister, she would speak up a lot for me and like I was kind of the one who's just kind of like in the background, like letting her do all the talking. So I feel like that's kind of like continued throughout like my adulthood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so our next segment, our empirical article. So I found one published by the BMC Medical Education or BMC Medical Education um about a study with undergraduate healthcare students at Qatar University, which I found really interesting. I feel like um we haven't really branched out outside of the country with these articles,
Mhm.
so um but I honestly think the results from this study could be applied universally,
Mhm.
but it also could just vary like by culture, just depending on how stigmatized or how open people are about mental health.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, so the study, it was about undergraduate healthcare students, and they were chosen based on the results from the PHQ-9, the Patient Health Questionnaire, which is basically 9 questions that evaluate um, where you are on the depression scale almost. So it's a lot of like questions asking you about like that would lead to a diagnosis for depression. Um, and then also the depression, anxiety, and stress scale. And so those who reported mild to moderate depressive symptoms were interviewed. And what the researchers found was that these students experienced excessive amounts of academic pressure, social isolation, anxiety, fear of failure, and stigma around resources for mental health. So again, although this was for healthcare student or this study was conducted on healthcare students, I honestly feel like it could be applied to many other fields, like
Hmm.
for us psychology students, for other I don't know what other, just really any. I feel
Yeah,
like any student in college could
would
probably
benefit.
relate to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, found that interesting.
Okay, that was a really good article. I
Mhm.
like those.
So then now we can kind of talk about
Uh,
what hiding our ADHD symptoms may look like. So another term for this could be like masking. And a lot of people use this term to describe like hiding their mental health or hiding their like struggles. So I've heard this term actually used a lot with like depression where they kind of,
yeah,
yeah, like masking those symptoms, not really showing like um outward like symptoms. Like someone with depression may appear like they're not depressed on the outside, and then on the inside they could, and then
yeah,
that could be applied with ADHD too, where someone may seem calm or organized and seem like they kind of have it all put together, but in reality they don't have it all figured out,
yeah.
and they could really be unorganized or just kind of struggling to keep up with work and school.
Hmm. I will say some of the stuff that shows up in like daily life for people who silently struggle would be like over preparing for
Mhm.
like daily tasks because they want to try to avoid as many mistakes as possible. Like I would say like, you know, making a to-do list of every single little thing that you have to do for the day so you don't miss something or mess up something. That is really shown with people who struggle silently. And then like 10 if you like laugh off like your forgetfulness or lateness, you kind of tell yourself like, oh, it's fine, but inside you're just like, wow, like I really messed up. You're over analyzing everything. And then like feeling drained after social or academic like interaction, like if you're in a club or even just in class, presenting or just, following the lecture, you just come home and you feel really drained and tired. Like it was just too much. Now you have so much on your mind. You can't concentrate. Like even days like you go home and you have to do more homework, but you completely just feel really out of it. You don't even feel like doing your homework anymore. Those are really big signs like that you're struggling silently.
I will say laughing it off could be a form of like coping with it,
Mhm.
and just kind of using humor to cover that, like the actual I guess, I don't know, just the actual struggle. Like some people may be like, "Oh, I'm just so forgetful, like
Mhm.
I'm so clumsy, this and that." It could be a good way to like cope with it and kind of um again releasing that stigma and just kind of, or like destigmatizing it and just kind
Mhm.
of like making it seem like it shouldn't have to be that big of a deal, but then it could also be a way where you're kind of not or like it's not taken as serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No, yeah. I do agree with that.
mhm. So I guess some kind of piggybacking off of that, some common hidden symptoms could be, fatigue, which you kind of talked about when you're like have all these social interactions or you had such a busy day and you want to go home and relax, and sometimes you can't, or sometimes you're just done with everyone and everything.
Yep.
A lot of anxiety can come up too, especially around, due dates and tests, and then some. Mhm.
Especially with finals coming around right now.
Right. And something that the article talked about, the empirical article I mentioned earlier about academic pressure,
Mhm.
that could lead to a lot of anxiety, and
Yep.
then that could lead to even more mental fatigue because you're like your nervous system is kind of like being overworked and you're just like you finally
Yeah.
reach that like point where you kind of like crash. And then again that like chaos kind of in your brain where you're like handling one thing, you're handling school, work, family life, personal life.
Yep.
So, yeah, and then again, we talked about executive dysfunction a lot
Mhm.
throughout the podcast and just kind of that like weird stage where you like know you want to start tasks, you know what to do, you know that you know you could have a set schedule, but then it's like hard to actually start them and motivate yourself to start.
Yeah, I would say motivation is a big thing for struggling because the lack of it is just, it's really like, it's really common, honestly. Another thing like that people struggle with is like regulation, and like they get really frustrated, they can't regulate themselves, or you feel like guilt or shame
Hmm.
whenever like you do something wrong or mess up something.
Yeah.
And it's also very common because you could even get like overly excited, and I think like you can't regulate how excited you are, so people, tend to look at you like, "Oh, like she's super excited."
Hmm. Yeah, because I think, well, you mentioned frustration and guilt,
Mhm.
and kind of tying that back with motivation, where you're like not feeling motivated, so then you end up maybe not getting as much work done as you want,
Yeah.
or not anything, or not any work at all. So
Mhm.
then you feel that like frustration and guilt. And then what was the last thing you had said? Sorry, like the
Oh, I said like overly happy,
yeah, 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 yeah. And then like some people might
not understand why you're super happy about something.
right, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like people like that when you're like in a good mood for once and like you're like trying to like, bring up the vibes and then you
Mhm.
just have someone who's like, you know,
Just there, and
right,
yeah.
like bringing down your mood and stuff. Cause, and that also is like, yeah, you can like have shame about that. And you could be like, well, am I being too much for them? Am I doing a lot? Like,
Yeah.
why are they reacting this way? Like,
Mhm.
but it's important to understand that everyone has different personalities, different ways that they show symptoms. So, that
Yep.
person, even that person that's like not
Responding.
not responding the same as you, they could even be going through ADHD. So,
Yeah.
but it's just
Uh,
a time or just kind of like putting yourself a big thing about this is putting yourself in everyone's shoes and
Mhm.
kind of looking at things through different perspectives. And although it may be uncomfortable and you may not like it sometimes, like I just mentioned that I didn't like when people, or I don't like when people do that, but then I can also have empathy and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing that a lot of people that struggle silently have is like blindness,
Yeah.
and like the pressure of like being behind, or that you're not going to complete something on time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
Because like you may have like a whole week and you're already thinking, oh, like I don't have any time to do this, but in reality you have that whole week. So you
Yeah.
just mesh all your time together, and it just like bundles up and looks like a bunch of gibberish.
Right. Like I feel like the way I can describe it is in my brain. Like I can see my week and like I kind of
Mhm.
like I don't know how to explain. Like I can see each day and I'm like, okay, I have this amount of time to do like this assignment.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that like mental pictures kind of like help me a lot
Oh yeah.
too, especially when I have a lot to do. First writing it down and then kind of like taking a mental like note of everything,
Mhm.
which again, write it down because that doesn't, it's not
Yes.
always effective. Like those mental notes, trust me, they're not always effective. So,
Mhm.
writing it down, making sure that you learn those time management skills that could help a lot with time blindness.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah.
Um
Okay, so we just kind of want to insert a little like just example of our real life and kind of how um we feel burnouts after those long periods of
Yeah.
masking and pretending that we kind of have it all together. Like at some point it does become a lot and you
Mhm.
do have to find your like kind of your voice in all of this and admit when it's not okay and when you're
Yeah.
feeling tired and um I feel like the biggest thing that has helped me is my friends and kind of finding people that understand me
Yeah.
and who I'm comfortable enough to share that I'm not doing okay and that I'm struggling. And honestly, y'all, 9 times out of 10, my friends will say the same thing. And it kind of makes you feel less alone and less isolated.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, do you have anything to add?
I will like piggyback off you. Definitely, my first 2 years of college, I didn't really have any friends. Like, it was only just like me and my cousin. But the more like I went into like school, I gained more friends and I found like my people. I talk to Cynthia and Olivia like every day, and we're so open about if we're having a rough day, like this week is draining. Sometimes, we say it a lot, but it is because, the semester was really, really draining. And honestly, we're excited for this break because we
Mhm.
get a month off, but
Yep.
we do experience burnout and it causes that lack of motivation, which I definitely had that a lot this semester.
Yeah.
So it's been a struggle, but we're getting through it day by day.
Yeah, and that kind of brings, or like, that's a nice segue into our next topic, which is kind of opening up about are the struggles and not feeling ashamed about them anymore. And I think I'm not sure if it's just because we're like psychology students, but we're really good at expressing how we feel
Hmm.
when we are struggling, especially with like our ADHD. Um and yeah, being vulnerable is okay. It doesn't make you any like quote unquote like weaker,
Hmm.
which isn't yeah, just vulnerability is a better way to put it.
Yes.
And it's okay to be vulnerable, especially with people that you trust. Because again, like I said, most of the time they'll also relate to you and you'll
Hmm.
feel and then you also should welcome those people too and you could offer each other support and instead of disregarding how they feel just because you feel a certain way
Yeah.
you can come together find support for each other
Yes.
and learn how to talk about it in safe ways so again friends professors could even you could even talk to your professors hey I'm honestly really struggling,
Hmm.
not just in your class, but in every single one of my classes. But a professor that you trust, I don't think you would want to go up to a random
No.
professor that you don't really have a relationship with.
And another person I would recommend, like, you talk to would be like your therapist or just finding a community of ADHD. You can find someone like GroupMe or on social media, and they're really helpful. You can talk it out with them, and a therapist is someone you trust. They'll help you like find a routine or they'll just help you like cope with everything overall. So it's really nice to have them around.
Hmm. Okay, so that brings us to our final thoughts. So just remembering that you can struggle silently and it's still as serious as someone who may be more or struggling more outwardly, I guess if that makes sense. Um, someone who may show their ADHD symptoms a little more than someone who, just compared to someone who may not show the same symptoms, but
Mhm.
everyone's ADHD is valid and everyone's struggles are valid. And it doesn't have to look a certain way for you to consider it a struggle. Um, and just having self-compassion, again, we've talked about in the past, giving yourself grace. Um,
Yeah, I will say, like, you don't have to earn rest. After a long day, you tell yourself, well, in order for me to go to sleep, I have to finish this. Because, there's days you deserve to just go to sleep and, worry about the assignment the next day, or even just proving your worth through like your productivity. There's going to be days you get one assignment done, or you're going to get five done the next day. It all is up to you, and whatever you feel like getting done for the day is what all you can do, and you're doing great no matter what. So just keep up the good work and tell yourself, you deserve all of this. You don't need to earn or prove anything.
Yeah, that was really well put. I think also, um, with all of that, just learning how your brain works best. And again, like you said, whatever you feel is most productive for yourself,
Mhm.
that's enough. As long as, everything gets done in a timely manner and you get those assignments done. Again, like we said, having a schedule for yourself, building those to-do lists,
Mhm.
and just because your friend may be doing five assignments, one day, that doesn't mean that your two assignments that you completed weren't enough. You
Yes.
got what you needed to get done and what you knew you could get done, and
Mhm.
you should be proud of yourself for that. But
Yes.
yeah, I think that's basically it for today.
Mhm.
So hopefully our next episode again we'll have back our third um co-host, and we'll talk about culture and ADHD, different cultures, and we'll have different perspectives on that. So yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Make sure to check out the rest of our podcast at Focus on Focusing Podcast.
Yes.
Um,
And remember to subscribe for future episodes.
mhm.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.